pruning season. What do you do after you've pruned all your branches? You can see this row is almost done. There's a pile of branches. It can take as long to manage the branches as it does to prune. So we're going to look at branch management today. What do you do with them? How do you manage them? What technique do you use? Stay tuned. So you've pruned. You got all your branches. One other way to do it, to remove the branches, is to use a sled. Sleds work well when there's snow on the ground. We're on the limit to using the sled because we start getting patches with grass, but it's still a lot easier to pull than a cart through snow. These are the long-handled secateurs that we use for some of the pruning. They're great for pruning, but we're not pruning anymore. We're just cutting up branches. So two types. One, and I don't even know the name of these loppers. They're not a bypass. They're anvil pruners. Yeah, that's right. Anvil pruners. These are really good to just cut up branches. Not precise cutting, but just to cut them up. And these, a shout out to Jody Roebuck who brought them from New Zealand. These are monsters. They'll cut through really big branches. Again, not so much for pruning, although these could be used for pruning, but just for cutting up branches. Again, the key, put them butt to the front on the branches. Just makes it easier. Now, notice it's a lot of cutting to cut each branch. We don't have to cut them up, and you can just pile them in. The only thing is you won't pile a whole lot and your sled will be full, which could be fine. Depends how much you want to walk. As you can see, this row is done. It took me about an hour to do one row, but it could take 2 hours to clear the branches if there's a lot of branches down. How you manage these branches is a lot. One of the keys is not to leave it till spring. It's really annoying in the spring to have to come through here with the row looking like that, or the lane looking like that, because you can't get through here. If you have to come plant or something, you're just delayed in what you can do. Try as much as possible to manage your branches as you're pruning. So we break it up. We'll do an hour of pruning and then an hour of removal. At least it moves different muscles. That's one way. You can pile your branches, and we used to do this. We would pile the branches in the middle, and then a tractor would come through with a bush hog. We did that for a few years until we started to pop tires on the tractor, and it would go through our running shoes. Be very careful. A lot of these fruit trees can have quite the spurs, and even if you have these branches down and a bush hog cuts everything that's sticking out, it will leave a bunch of spurs down in the grass. And these, when they dry up and we're on sandy soil, they can be like nails sticking out and ready to puncture your tires, and it's really not fun when it goes through your shoe. So bush hog is not the solution. The best is a hammer mill set up behind a tractor. We don't have a tractor, we certainly don't have a hammer mill, and we're about 20 miles away from other orchards, so nobody wants to drive over with their tool to come and do 3 hours in an orchard. We have to look at other alternatives. Picking them up is one, chipping them is another, and to do this, we've done it in the past with a smaller chipper. Would take about 4 hours for a row. Not exactly economical in time. A bigger chipper would be quicker, but then you have to get it through here as well. You really have to think through, what do you want to do? We figured out that picking them up, removing them, pulling them when they're longer, and just pulling them out the row is still one of the quickest ways for us to manage branches. It's one of my least favorite jobs in managing branches. I want to prune, and then that would be it. One way to manage your branches is to pile them and pull them out to the end of the row. I'll show you. One of the tricks to piling them is piling them all butt end to you. Otherwise, as you're pulling them, any branch that's not butt end will seem to catch on the trees, on the branches on each side. So butt end to you, pile them. You can pile quite a bit, and the key is put the biggest branches on the bottom so you only have to lift them. One of the ways we found to get rid of branches, but a 2-for-1, is use the branches and build brush piles all around the periphery of the orchard. It acts as a windbreak, it acts as habitat. Here's a place where a rabbit has been using. It will be used by rabbits and it will be used by mice. The birds love to nest in it as well. It's a real wildlife habitat creation technique. Takes a lot of branches because they do decompose as the years go by. It is also an export of fertility from the orchard to the brush piles. We just pile it up and let the time take its course. Some little bird will find this just wonderful this spring. So, I could still use the sled. That's good. One new technique we're trying for managing the branches is to create biochar with them. And this is a project that Frank Tooten is doing to turn them into a biochar mineralized complex. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a great way to get rid of a lot of branches, but it's an extra step. As you can see, just having put these in the fall, some of these branches have been used by the voles. So yes, don't pile your branches right near your fruit trees, because this will be a great place for voles and mice and rabbits to live in, and they will visit your trees. Wherever you pile your branches, they'll tend to go to the closest trees. So we keep the branches away from the trees as much as possible. But biochar is another way to manage your branches, but to make something else even more valuable with them. Two other uses you can make of your branches. So here's some branches that have been gnawed by mice or rabbits. Oh, mice and rabbits gnaw branches. Have you ever seen branches sold in the pet store as branches for rabbits, for all the rodents, guinea pigs, rabbits, mice, gerbils? They all like to chew on, they need to chew on something, but at the same time they love the bark of fruit trees. So you could cut these up, put them in a bag, and sell them. That way you even profit some from the branches you're collecting. So that's one option. Another one, if you do it while the branches are fresh and when you know. So you saw a video I put up a few weeks ago about how to gather, store, and collect and select scion wood. So a lot of these branches have viable scion wood. If you're taking them, you can gather these up and sell them. Normally this could be sold for between $5 and $7. That's a little small, but that gives you the idea. You could have a business on selling the cultivars you have as scion wood. So there's another option to profit from it. I don't like to mix them up. I'm doing one or the other. But if you only have a few trees and you have some really desirable cultivars, that could be an option. Before any of you yell at me to say, hey, what about chop and drop? Chop and drop is another option. Only thing is, if you're going to chop and drop, you have to really chop the branches down. See here, we piled some. But if they're not chopped up into single strands, and I mean like this, that will lie flat. But if we start cutting branches like this, and then we pile more on top of it, it doesn't take long, and they're not going to be flat anymore. If they're not touching the ground, they won't be rotting down very quickly. And in fact, we have piles like our brush piles that stay there for 4 or 5 years. Do you want 4 or 5 years of branches piled around your trees? Certainly not here with voles and rabbits, where if you have a pile, you will certainly have that tree girdled in the winter. So you think of how you want to do it, what you want to do with the branches, where you want to put them, how you want to manage them, and then do it yourself. If you like this, subscribe, share it, have fun, have a good season. Thanks.